It is my incredible pleasure to introduce Megan Smith, who is the Vice President of New Business Development and the General Manager of Google.org. I am not going to read her biography to you because I'm pretty sure that you're capable of reading it yourself. However, I will tell you some of the very cool things about her. She essentially has been in charge at Google of acquiring everything that, well, okay, I can't actually say everything that is neat about Google because that would be really insulting. But really a lot of really cool stuff like Google Maps and Google Earth and spreadsheets and book search and all kinds of cool stuff. And she is a huge champion of diversity and of education and sort of everything that I think the people in this room are passionate about. Her mother is a teacher, so she comes from a long line of people sort of passionate about education. And on the list of cool things about her, she actually raced a solar car across Australia in one of the first cross-continental races. So if you can join me in welcoming her.
Hello, and welcome to Google. It's incredible to have you guys here because you guys are where it all starts. And without you, there's no companies like ours. So thank you. What I wanted to do is, the title that they were talking about for me was to talk about education and the future of education, technology and stuff. And I actually wanted to step back from that a little bit and talk about the extraordinary impact of computer science and the game-changing level that we're seeing across the globe, and kind of flip through a bunch of images of examples of that. Because I think that one of the biggest answers to pulling even more young people into computer science is to tell them what is happening because of computer science and because of IT and the kind of extraordinary impact people like all of you are having on the world and what they can have on the world. And I wanted to start with this image. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to be downstairs in the lobby here, but before you go out, if you go out this way, take a minute to look at a screen that's just to your left. There's a spinning globe there, and one of our engineers hooked it up to our data centers. And as it spins, you can see these lines of searches. Each dot is representing an aggregate number of searches. And so you pretty much see that wherever there is IP and wherever there's electricity and people awake and even not awake, there's searching and there's internet connectivity and there's community and there's interconnectedness. And I think that the biggest theme of the 21st century is this interconnection that the computer scientists and the engineers have enabled for humanity, that is going to impact not only all of how we live our lives, how we're educated, our environment, et cetera, but just extraordinary changes in society. And I love this image because it illustrates that. This is a march that happened in Colombia. Millions, I think 12 million people marched. It's the first march ever against a terrorist group. And it came from one Facebook group. And it's happened twice now. So one person got this idea that we don't want this anymore. And just people started piling on, they tell their friends. And once everybody's interconnected through Facebook, this kind of stuff can happen. And I think when you see this, you can imagine, OK, how does this come and apply around the world to so many things, including education? You know, you guys are familiar with these images from Iran, where YouTube and Twitter and these products allowed, again, this interconnection, the adjacency of what each of these people were thinking, were able to be known to each other and to all of us. And so we could crowdsource and come together and push back. Maybe not as hard as we might want to, but we're on a path to getting there. And in fact, one of the things I love about the millennials, and you guys are teaching the next generation of the millennials, so they do these things, and then they organize a best practices conference. So this is, think about the Tiananmen Square youth standing in front of the tank. These are all those groups, and yet they meet together and they webcast the best practices of doing a youth movement in your country. So we've got the Burma kids, we've got the Cuba kids, we've got the Turkey kids, we've got kids from our own country, and they're working on social change, justice, and environment, youth issues, senior issues, whatever's going on. It's really exciting. So this is another illustration of just power of computer science. So this is a town in Pakistan, and one of our incredible engineers, Lala, in Bangalore, wanted to find a way to sort of do a Wikipedia-like thing with mapping. He came up with a product called MapMaker. And so across a period of a couple weeks, if you surf around on the web and you go into any kind of maps, you often end up in a town that's in some emerging market, and all you get is an X or like a dot. And so this is Lahore. But within a couple weeks, this is what they drew of themselves because they wanted to be on the map. And it's just extraordinary what happens when a computer scientist like Lala, together with platforms and access, can give to all of the shop owners, the students, the clinics, the people in this town so they can appear. And then this becomes an extraordinary resource for everybody who lives here, wants to visit, and they're on the map. Another set of tools that I think will have a profound impact on the world are all the incredible machine translation work that everybody's doing around the universities. We are doing a lot of this work here. And just the ability to translate, you can go on, you can be on a web page, you click translate, and it's there. And watching how youth are using that and being able to cross-converse, and that'll become real time. Very exciting impact. This is a project, I think I actually have two of these in here, but called FluTrans. Jeremy Ginsberg is one of the Google engineers who wondered, when we don't feel well, we start searching, or if our kid doesn't feel, our parent doesn't feel well, we search. And they wondered whether we could actually look inside the logs at Google and see emerging disease. And so they chose flu because there's a time when it is and a time when it's not. So they might be able to see that. And they were like, what are the query strings? So we were lucky to get the data from the CDC. And let's see. So we had data from the CDC, and they took that and they sort of reverse engineered what were the query strings. And there's like 30-something query strings that people use, including strep throat. Like, who would know if they started to get the flu? And so if all of a sudden you start to see this series of searches coming from a particular city or small town, then you know that flu is starting. And in fact, we're in the middle of translating this product. This is a Google.org product. And into a bunch of languages. And so they had Spanish, and they went back and looked at the logs, and you could see the swine flu coming into Mexico. And had we been looking together with the ministries of health there, we probably would have seen it a week ahead, which may have saved some lives. So this is an idea of using adjacent data and leveraging computer science tools there. And the other thing, back to this one picture, is that we're able to see this right away or near real time. And what happens with the hospital reporting is it often is lagging. People get really sick, and then they go to the hospital. So there's the delay of the person and then the delay of the hospital reporting. So we've been able to launch this in about 30 countries. And we're now beginning to work and explore, could we do this with other diseases? Can we help the Ministry of Health across different countries and citizens know what's going on? And then use this to promote flu vaccines or whatever needs to happen. How I think this expands, and I think is so amazing for global health and computer science. And I'm on the MIT board, and Susan Hockfield, who's the president there, always talks about how the physical sciences and the life sciences are so coming together. It's one of the biggest trends now. This is in Cambodia. What happens in a lot of emerging markets in a lot of countries, there's health posts. In Cambodia, there's 600. Then there's a central clinic, and then there's the hospitals. And so the people come through that system. So these health posts are quite accessible, and they have a lot of data. And since SARS, a lot of Southeast Asia has been collecting data. But they collect it like this: how many different kinds of coughs, who has what symptoms. And so it's very non-digital. What I think is exciting is one of the things I know that in Cambodia, some of the tobacco tax money is going to computer science implementations of making this digital, making this SMS-based, and letting people report this data. Once this aggregate sets of data are available, we can do the same kind of trending and maybe prevent pandemics using computer science, using data, and all the different players in addition to the CS people there. OK, so one of the things that you'll see downstairs, and I want to talk about access, is that when the globe spins around, there's a really depressing story, which is Africa is not online at scale at all. So what you see is, and it's not time difference, because look at Europe. And the colors are language. So red is English. You see Portuguese and Spanish and French and others. It's that there is no access here. And it's obviously not because of lack of extraordinary talent. This is a really fun event that we were able to host at the University of Nairobi with the incredible students there watching the inauguration. This is this amazing network that exists. 30, 40% of many of these countries are mobile connected to each other, and people are SMSing and doing these things. So amazing penetration from a communications perspective. But the story of why that's not, they're not connected lies right here. This satellite connectivity. If we had to connect to the internet with satellite connectivity, we wouldn't have Google, we wouldn't have Amazon, we wouldn't have anything. It's way too expensive and slow. And the latency just awful. So what I think is just unbelievable to me, almost unconscionable, is this story, which is, this is a slide from 2005. This is the undersea cabling. So light means plant. That means 900 million people who live, the half of what are over here, have no cable. Nobody's bothered to this. So it's fundamental tech, internet, computer science work that we can do to help actually get the fundamentals here and bring that here. The other thing is on this side, you see that there's not connectivity to certain countries, whole countries, without proper internet access, and yet the cables are right off their shore. Now the good news. This is the landing of the cables in that planned area. So the 2 cables have come down the right-hand side of the continent now. This is some of the Googlers and the other people from the Kenyan leadership of ICT. And so the countries are getting ready. Uganda has cross-wired. Kenya is working on. Tanzania is working on. Rwanda is amazing. They're all over Silicon Valley. They're all over the tech world. They're just pushing really hard to get themselves into the global conversation. You can't imagine a business today that doesn't have email. So how are these entrepreneurs able to do things? So this is very exciting. I think for me, it's one of the most exciting things that's happening in the world today. And there's extraordinary talent surviving through the satellite connectivity. This is a wonderful new media company called Homeboys that does DJ training and online radio stations, and is actually working on a new Disney series called Klinga Klinga Tales, which does African folk tales with Tanzanian pop art. Wonderful group of entrepreneurs in Nairobi. This is M-Pesa. In Kenya, you can pay for things with your phone, and half the people do it. So really far ahead in sort of mobile and e-commerce. And in fact, for the unbanked sector, this is a great way to have a bank account and have stored value. We're seeing really interesting SMS applications. This is an experiment we have with texting for searching for health tips and agricultural tips. So various prominent folks who are, I don't know if you guys know the green phone model where there's a village phone lady or man, and so the village has a phone and everybody's kind of cross-sharing it and they're selling minutes. So the same person is offering SMS services, and we're able to offer information SMS services on top of that, working with local NGOs to get content, sort of like the index is coming from the NGOs, working to get that online, and experimenting with SMS access. And also access for trading, almost like Craigslist-y like offers and buying things. I love this application. So this is in West Africa. The West African Trade Hub is working with drivers who are texting delays on the roads, bribes on the roads, and details about what's going on. So, how do you take back, just like the Iran example, the FARC in Colombia, how do you take back your world? Well, you can do it in aggregate together with data and then push back on the system. So computer science is completely enabling this. Okay, one of the other things from technology, I always think this picture was one of the most extraordinary pictures for helping humanity understand that we're all together on this planet. And what the whole environmental movement and the concept, if you go back 100 years, if you said environment, people are like, what do you mean? But now people know exactly what you mean. And it comes from the technology that happened to get people to the moon, which included computer science. Some of the environmental things that the computer science world are delivering, this is a project that the Google Earth team came up with, which was an idea, could we use Google Earth, in addition to geolocating information, could we also do Earth and planetary sciences, almost like a platform? And so we're working together with a couple really good groups. Amazon is from Brazil, and Carnegie is from Stanford. So these are satellite pictures from the 70s to today of deforestation. And so what these Amazon and Carnegie and groups like that are helping the different indigenous groups and country planning and others to take this data set of satellite imagery and crunch it and understand what they have and do planning. What we're working on is, can we do that at a global scale? There's a petabytes data set that's available at the Landsat satellite imagery that's watched the Earth for 30 years. So the Earth Engine team said, could we take that data set across 30 years and kind of throw it in the data centers together with partners, scientific partners, crunch this and make available a tool so that an indigenous group, a country group, whoever wanted to, would be able to look at their forestry footprint across this period of time and have actual access to this data set and do planning. And could we do that to make living trees as valuable as dead trees? 20% of the greenhouse gases come from deforestation. So it's a critical thing that we get good at this, but at a global scale, at a countrywide scale. So this is something that we as computer scientists with our platforms and others can contribute. Other things are data. We have a project called Power Meter, and this is just, a lot of people don't know what the power consumption, who knew you should turn these things off and who cares about those kind of in detail. So we've been working on this Power Meter project, which is trying to help people understand their power consumption. We're working on getting more granular data. There's not smart meters in all homes, but where we can get access to them, people can sign up and see their power consumption and take hold of that. It turns out that the studies are showing that people will save 5 to 15% of their power if they know about it. And if you aggregate that around a lot of people, you really don't have to build as many coal plants. Once you do energy awareness, you start to then get into replacing appliances and clever offers you could make, and again, using the internet for this, and then eventually clever smart grid work, turning things on and off automatically. We have the last project we talk about in energy and environment is RE less than C, which is an idea called renewable energy for the price less than coal. Lots of people have been thinking about this. Bill Gates wrote a great op-ed about how are we going to get below this pricing. The issue is that coal is 3 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and everything else costs a lot more. And so we can never subsidize an entire shift of all of our energy production. But if we can get these things to be cheaper, the technologies that are close, we'll be able to build them instead of the coal plant when we need more power and slowly work to replace it. So at Google, we're working on some of these technologies. People around the world are working on them. And there's information components. This is Rena, which is geothermal powered. And so from a CS perspective, visualization and mapping and telling people that the US is actually the Middle East for geothermal, that we have a lot of geothermal power that if we innovate around this, sort of telling the story of where the resource is. These are some third parties. There's a group called Global Solar Center that is trying to take the cost out of getting solar, where you just have a map and you grab your roof and you just ask for a quote. So instead of these little mom and pops who are these great solar providers in the cities driving around and sort of adding all their costs for an ops and like giving quotes, you're actually more pre-qualified. And then they send over the stuff. This is an aggregate buying of solar for your community. So clever ops ideas for bringing down the costs of this stuff using computer science. And this is rabble-rousing. So the Carbon War Room is out doing all kinds of blog aggregation. What are people talking about? Put this widget on your blog and passing those pieces around. So the last thing that I'll talk about is inspirational, and then I'm going to talk about education briefly, is Haiti. Computer scientists in Haiti. So these are some of the things we did, but I think they serve as examples that you can tell students, here's why you want to be technical. Here's why you want to work on these great technologies. So whether it's creating landing pages, which we do with Geo. Here's the Geo team. We were able to get imagery of Haiti within 12 hours of the earthquake, which allowed us to upload and provide this to the relief workers. So you really detailed imagery. This was several flyovers of the golf course, and you could see the refugee groups moving, and people could start to plan to help these people. It became an entire encampment. And so you can use these images to help plan and help those people more directly. You have much more sense of what's going on, where the damage is. People were doing amazing work, texting, Facebooking, coming back, tweeting, and then rescue workers would know how to go and find somebody. This was a project that got launched in Katrina, and it's an open source project that we work on called People Finder, and it just federates the databases. So if you have information about a person who's missing, or you're looking for a person who's missing, you can use this tool, and it helps you post to multi-databases across using APIs, standard APIs. The other thing we've been working on is health records. So most of the health records in a disaster are on the floor. They're on your arm. So how can we help you know that there's an orthopedic surgeon right near you, or help people quickly with resources that they need in a very high pressure situation? And then this is the network. So other things we were able to do. There's two main networks into this region, one coming across from the DR and the other is into Haiti. The ISPs went down, so the network just disappeared. And so we were able to work with the various ISPs there and get, our network team just collected like 7 pallets of network goods, and we shipped them to the ISPs and worked with them to get them back online, and they came back. So capacity building in that way, it's, in addition to the different things everyone can do, if you're a technical person, you can actually enable everybody else by getting the network back. So the last thing I want to talk about is a run of a couple images around education. So I think that the core answer to all of this is all of you. It's the master teachers who, tools and that for you will create the most incredible education experiences for everybody. This is a really fun program that we've been able to be part of called Computer Science for High School. And it's sort of a flash mob of great CS faculty and teachers coming together. I don't know if has anyone in this room been part of this, maybe? Yeah, there's a couple of people. So I don't know tons, but you guys come together for a couple days and you create curriculum. And it's this amazing code jam around curriculum. So, when teachers get a hold of tools, they just do amazing things. This is IS 339 in the Bronx. The kids were, I think I get the stat rate, 17% or lower on their math, were below math grade level. And we worked with them, and now all the kids are in this cross-collaborative. They use Google Apps, but you could do any kind of cloud tool. And the teachers and the kids are all, so the teachers are working together cross-curriculum. You've seen it, sort of the English teacher working with the math teacher, working with the science teacher, bringing that together, leveraging the technology for their learning. And then the students having these tools and being able to self-explore. They're all, the school has moved to be in the high 60% of kids at math grade level at this point in 2 or 3 years, and they keep moving up. So it's definitely working. People may know Salman Khan. This is this extraordinary guy. He has 2 math degrees and 2 CS degrees from MIT and an HBS degree. And he started to teach his cousins using Skype. And he realized he should record it. And now he's recorded all of these classes. So, and we found out about it because people's kids were starting to watch this stuff, and they're like, "This is really good." So I think I think the content becomes available and free. I mean, the certification is probably paid, but it becomes available to all of you, to the kids, and so education really fundamentally changes when it's available like this. Very exciting stuff. I wanted to share, there's this wonderful engineer, Salvatore here, who helped work with USAID and the global learning portals. And he was in Rwanda 3 weeks ago, and they launched this portal, the Rwanda Education Commons. We came up underneath them. And they trained 2,000 teachers. There's 8,000 teachers in Rwanda. And now they're online. And they are, it's just basic groups, and they're talking to each other. There's a couple hundred 7-day actives, so people are actually starting to do this. They're starting to post content. And this is this story where this one teacher, Emma something, is asking about how are we going to change geography learning, and how are we going to do this? And now I can write to this person. You can write to this person. So I think there's this incredible opportunity where the teachers of the world are going to start to talk to each other, like many of you are already doing. But as the master teachers get together, you will also make major impact, and the network is doing this. this is Guru. I don't know if people showed this a little bit, but it's an experiment that one of our leaders in the research engineering side has. But where there are, especially in emerging markets, not enough teachers who know particular subjects, or in fact a teacher who only comes a couple days a week, can you get access as the access comes and gets cheaper, and bring teachers with, in this case, his theory is you have a teacher in the room, but maybe you bring the science teacher, bring a math teacher, bring a specialist, and you leverage this, and it's live. It's not a video. And the teacher comes, and the kids are interacting, and they actually have to compete with other classrooms. And so they ask questions, and they can use videos and images and sound and really make it exciting and make it game-ish. The kids are interacting with each other, trying to beat other classes. And then he's working on some kinds of tablet-y things as the tablets come, to have the kids also have a side thing that they, as an individual or a group of kids, can work on the side with that. So, and you guys saw App Inventor. So I'm just kind of flashing through some examples. This is also a whole other way of thinking of something. This is this amazing social entrepreneur, Bridge, who came up with this idea. Many children in India don't get to go to school. And so what he realized was there were many children, of these children were watching Bollywood song films. And so the TV was always on. So his idea was, could you actually same language subtitle this stuff? And as the kids are sitting or watching or minding the shop, but nobody's there, so they're watching, could you do this? And he started to do eye tracking experiments and watch them. Many people in India are partially literate. They can write some words. The kids might know some letters. They have the concept of reading. But if you could just bridge them into some kind of training, and it turns out this works. And it's like pennies to teach someone to read. And so he convinced one channel to start doing it on a show, and actually their ratings went up. And so he was able to convince the MTV equivalents to do this across the board. And so it's becoming standard practice to have same language subtitled karaoke version of that. And it's actually ulterior motive is teaching reading. So another sort of low-tech, high-tech way to do this. The last thing I want to say is I think all of these different examples, there's hooks that you can use to get, you can think of kids in your class or kids at school who might not have any interest in computer science, but they're the kids who are helping Haiti, or the kids who want to do environmental thing or whatever. I think you guys can be instrumental in translating what's possible to do with technology and why they should come in your class. And I wanted to share this because of the World Cup. This is actually from the last World Cup, but Alan Eustace, our head of engineering, used to show this, and he's just like, he used to ask, what do you think this is? And everybody would say, I don't know, and they think about it, and eventually they come with the Super Bowl. He's like, can't move Google traffic with Super Bowl. But this is the World Cup final. So people stop searching and watch, then they come back, and then then they go back to watch. So maybe you have a kid who loves soccer and they could care less about computer science. You might be able to hook them with this stuff. So I guess my input on the future of education and technology, I think the whole future is about interconnection. And I think it's interconnection of talent and how the talent of you guys are interconnecting with the talent of the students, and where that goes, I don't think we know, but it's great places. So thank you. Any questions? Anybody? Yeah. Do you guys want to? Do you want us to go to mic? Do you need us? Sorry, AV guy. Do you need us to use the mic? I think he's recording. Go to the mic and then yeah.
Well, mine's easy.
Okay.
Where are the boom boxes on your campus?
The boom boxes?
Yeah.
In what way do you mean? Like where are the kids?
No. You were a part of an experiment I saw in 16.
Oh, I see what you mean. The energy projects. That's a company that it's a Kleiner company, isn't it? It's an energy company. We just have some experimental that the data center teams are using to sort of test as backup power. One of our issues is, when the power goes out, we have all these awful generators that are not so eco-friendly. So we're trying to understand whether we can replace some of this technology with that, which would be great. So they're actually, I think, like that way, like 3 buildings. So if you need to see them, come find me.
Yeah, I want to see them.
Okay, we can ask somebody. Sure. Hi.
One of the things that is hard for computer scientists, or we're trying to recruit students, is when computer science and the role of computer scientists becomes invisible. Now, obviously, Google is all about computer science, but your employees are called engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it contributes to the invisibility of the incredible computer science work we do, and it makes students, when they see that phrase, Google engineer,
Right.
think, well, it's not for me because I'm not interested in engineering.
And that's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Is Jordan still here? Does she have to? I think she had to go. Yeah. So we were just talking about this. Is what are the things that would be good to inspire? What things could we do? Whether it's like a brand campaign or things to pull more kids to understand computer science has these kinds of impact on our part. I don't have a good answer for that. There's, like MIT is the computer science and electrical engineering, course 6. So maybe we need to rebrand that. Yeah, okay, thanks, yeah.
Google Academy for Teachers has been very difficult to crack into that.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to offer more of these academies? I know the last one was in the United Kingdom, I believe.
Yeah, that's interesting because we were just talking about whether code.google.com, how could we open up what the 18 million developers and programmers are using, commercially or nonprofits, with all our different APIs and tools. How could we make sort of a high school and a teacher version of that? So if you have ideas, it's something that we would love to think more about. And how can we also make it more available in addition to physical meetings that happen, but also can we make it more online and available? The good news is I don't know if Maggie Johnson is in here, but who runs NGDU, is starting to pull together all of our different education programs and saying, how can we pull more like, CS for high school, do more of this at volume, at scale, in multiple locations. So thanks. Very good thing to do. Yeah. Great. So an external site for the Teachers Academy. Great, so more training, yeah.
Just an extension on that. I work at a community college.
Great.
And I think you should be doing a little bit more at the community college level to encourage the professors to use it. And, I would love to see that happen.
Great. So that we could probably pilot a little bit with you guys and then sort of see what's working and then see how to scale it out.
High school students go to community
Right.
college for that extra class.
Right, and it's a great place. Community college is such a good bridge time. Either people are going to school and they finish there, or they're using it as a bridge, and so you may be able to pull them into technology and CS at that point. Yeah.
I'm seems an interesting time when you talk about the need and the desire for more. Was Google approached at all, or did you have any input when the AP language eliminated the AP computer science exam? Here we are, we're talking about trying to keep our country in the forefront, great ideas, and then all these other subjects are continuing to be supported, but they couldn't do that. And I just wondered if Google had been approached or had any opinion.
A while ago, I don't know what we're saying. We have some people exploring like how you can teach some of this stuff online and seeing what, just very experimental, to try to maybe bring that back or raise that, the presence of that. But I don't think anybody directly approached us, but it's something that we're sort of pushing back on together with all of you. Yeah.
An interest as do many of us here.
And I think one of the issues was the curriculum itself. They wanted to adapt it, so maybe we could come back at them with a vastly improved curriculum.
That would be great.
Adding some web sciences. There are other things that'll really pull the kids in, and then sort of repropose it in its new 2.0 form. So that's a good idea. Other questions? Yeah.
I'm confused about the picture you put of Africa with very little light source to indicate the searches. I thought there was a big problem with internet crime in Nigeria. There was access.
So I think a couple things. There's tons of conversation and digital conversation within Africa of people using mobile phones and SMS and interconnection. And there's, of course, an elite layer of people who can afford this expensive internet access that's satellite-based. But most of the conversations are happening there and not bridging as much as it could be. And because of the price of the net, which is changing, as I was showing you, the cables are coming. So people there will have the kind of internet we have, hopefully faster. What are we, number 63 or 9 or something? Maybe they'll have Korea's internet. But they are getting that. That's happening. People have finally started to invest so the actual infrastructure will be there, which means the Larry and Sergey who live there will get to make the kinds of Google-like companies, or the Jeff Bezos, whoever lives there gets to now innovate and really reach out to all of us to provide those goods and services. There is a lot of issues around fraud, across the web, definitely physical space, in a lot of emerging market countries, notable in sub-Saharan Africa. So those are issues that people have to struggle with. I actually think the example of the transparency is sort of how you flip that. How do you shine a light on the problems? We've seen social entrepreneurs do really interesting things. For example, in the slums in South Africa, people were actually publishing routes that people should walk that were safer, so that youth or women, people wouldn't get attacked. This is a better way to go, or this is where sort of people will be watching out for you. So just using technology to take back your power together in some ways. So I think people will see really interesting applications from the emerging markets around this kind of stuff. In fact, there's a company in India that is starting that it helps you sue when somebody tries to make you pay extra for something. They'll come back at the people, and they get a little bit of money for it. Instead of paying the bribe, you pay them, and then it stops it. And it's actually working really well. It's a very good social entrepreneur. Yeah.
Not on the same scale as not have the access in Africa. There are a lot of places here in the United States, in rural United States, that have no access to internet. Is anything being done to address any of that kind of stuff?
I think a lot of people are doing interesting work. There's actually Eric Brewer is here, here's he. I don't know if you have particular examples inside the U.S. He's been working more on India, rural and stuff. Eric is a faculty at Berkeley and helping us this summer with some different things.
Yeah, we're working on trying to get, we've gotten Wi-Fi to go very long distances, like 100 miles, 200 miles. And we actually started that work in India, but we're actually testing it in California also. In fact, we're looking to work with the Pomo Indian tribe in Northern California, because they're a group that's basically disconnected. Technically, it's quite cheap, and it's about, maybe $500 to do a link. So to bring internet to an area that's far away, that's maybe $500. And so you start in an urban area like Ukiah that has DSL or cable, extend that arbitrarily long distances, mountain to mountain, into essentially villages. We don't use that word in this country, but that's what they are. And then spread it around locally, either using regular Wi-Fi or even Ethernet, if it's a school or a library, things like that. The main issue really is actually one of training people on how to actually set up the links and do a little bit of management of the actual routers. They're very simple because they're very related to the Wi-Fi access points you would use in a house. And since those are kind of consumer grade elements, they're relatively easy to manage. But it's still, that's the limiting factor, is actually towers so that you can see a long distance. Although East Bay Mud in California can help with that. And then the actual management of the pieces. So where it's going to go, not super clear, but that's one part of it. That's the actual access part. And that looks pretty promising. And much cheaper than something like satellite or phone access.
Great, thanks, Eric. And this is actually, something to, it's actually like two things. One, an analogy for teaching. There are many different players to get that done. Like if you think about the ecosystem of that, there's the invention work that Eric and the graduate students did upon this base standard to make it cheaper and longer distances and stuff. But then there's maybe publishing how to do that. But then there's roles for people to go and community build and get people to learn how to do that, and let's do this. Maybe we have a net day kind of thing, or just get moving on that, or lobby to policy players. And I think it's back to sort of pulling the students in. I think that it's interesting to tell them all those different roles. Like if we think about our company, there's a lot of different roles that want to know about computer science, but they don't require you to program. So you might want to be a programmer or a computer scientist. You might want to be a product manager. You might want to be a salesperson who understands the technology, or a sales engineer who helps, or developer relations who helps other people write their product. You might want to do marketing and creative. You might want to do user interface design. You might want to write tech docs. or tell the stories, or be Creative Lab and really try to think of how are we going to convince people to love computer science, as a brand activity or something. There's so many different roles. So I think not only in that project to scale that out. And what I love about the millennials and the groups coming is they're the baby boomers kids. They care a lot about this stuff, and they federate really well. They are respectful of hierarchy, but they don't, they're like, hey, you do this, and you do this, and I'll do this, and people volunteer, and they just kind of pile on, and things happen. And I think they do that because they are, people call them the digital natives. They've been doing their homework with instant messaging, and if you're 20 years old today, AOL was big when you were 4. So, the internet boom, then bust, whatever, okay, you were 9 or 10. So there's not really a world that exists without the internet in your personal experience. And so they all think we're crazy talking about this new thing. Like, what do you mean? There's a great story that our head of mobile, Vic Kadosha, tells about. He was having dinner, and his 5-year-old was playing. He was talking to a friend. 5-year-old daughter was playing near him. And he just said something, I don't know. And his daughter's like, Daddy, where's your phone? And he continued conversing, Daddy, where's your phone? And he said, I don't know, it's in the car. She couldn't understand why, if you said, I don't know, you didn't get your phone. Because the answer is in your phone. Right? So, isn't that interesting? If you're 5, all the answers are in your phone. So, they don't think like we think. And I think that what they also do, I remember Anjali Joshi, who is one of the senior product management leaders here, her daughter just graduated from MIT this year, and she was telling me sometimes she'll get a ping from her daughter, Mom, are you online? And okay, so her daughter's in Boston, she's here, she's like, yeah, what's up? I'm trying to find this room, can you see? She'll describe the room, and then boom, here's the room. Oh, yeah, it's down the hall, turn left. So these guys, and it's not invasive, because it's like, she could just say, hey, I'm in the middle of a meeting. But these kids know how to aggregate knowledge and leverage each other. They leverage all of us, they leverage each other, they talk to each other, they have this wisdom of crowds at their fingertips. And so I think education can be quite different as they kind of come and team up and participate in this, which is exciting. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, you guys.